So obviously, one of the big sort of selling points of the game is that this is an open world game.
Yep.
But at the same time, there's also, without going into spoilers, it seems like there's also the game sort of becomes linear-ish at a certain position. So are you more of a fan of the open world? Are you more a fan of the linear portions? And how do those speak to each other without going to spoilers?
So yeah, without absolutely no spoilers here. I won't spoil anything. Ooh, these are some. This is a fairly nice car part for 6,000. That's pretty expensive, but I'll buy it. So all right. The truth, I love the open world.
Cool.
I think it's a blast to explore. It's got a good mix of just like, it's not the typical modern open world where it's like, here's a billion icons. I mean, like, yes, when you look at this map, there are a lot of I'm not gonna lie, there are lots of icons on that map, but it does not feel like the open world does not feel like a housing for a bunch of inane activities.
Gotcha.
It feels like an organic, real place that's beautiful that I want to explore just to see this.
I was going to say, the sun came out and the game got real pretty.
Yeah.
Well, this is weird dudes eating a burrito.
And then just to run into people eating something, and then Ignis learns a recipe.
Yeah.
Or I'm driving at night, and it's rainy, and it's creepy and weird looking.
Yeah.
And then there's someone parked on the side of the road who's broken down. Are they going to hurt me? Probably not, but like there's a little bit of ambience there.
I like that.
I love that about this game, and yes, there are also activities to do and actual things to find. It's a nice mix of like laid-back exploration and actual purposeful, like gameplay-driven stuff.
Yeah, I feel like a good open world is one that allows you to fast travel, but you feel compelled not to. You sort of are like, well, I could fast travel here, but if I actually go there on foot or via car, then I'm going to find something cool along the way.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I feel about playing the open world here. So that said, so then there are these more. I'm looking at some of this stuff. I love how, by the way, everyone's like,
the little 16-bit sprites.
Yeah, little 16-bit sprites. That's super old school.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that really bugs me is that about the linear parts. So first of all, I think that overall the linear sections are not as high quality as the non-linear ones. That's just like overall. That's just how I feel. Yeah. And that's not always the case. Some of the more linear parts are actually quite good and quite fun. There are some set pieces that are really neat. I don't want to ruin them for people. I've mentioned one of them in my review where you're kind of, you're warping between different dropships trying to repel an attack from the Imperials.
That sounds awesome.
I thought it was a really super rad. I thought that was super awesome.
Yeah, that almost sounds like Uncharted-y in terms of set pieces.
Yeah. So I really like that. But then that said, there's also ones that are not so strong and that last for a really long time.
Yeah.
And when I'm stuck in one of those, I really just I'm like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
I want to be back in the open world.
Yeah.
So there's that element of it. There's a vacillating kind of level of quality to the linear sections. Some of them are good, some of them really aren't, and that's kind of one of the big things. The other big thing, though, for me is that it is strange to me, like at a certain point in the game, you will leave this continent to go to other places in the world where the rest of the story takes place. And it's so strange to me because my initial instinct at that point was, oh, there must not be very much more to see in this open world.
Yeah.
Like the story to that point must have pointed me to most of what the open world has to offer. And then when I came back to the open world periodically later, I realized, I'm like, oh my God, there's there's entire regions that the story never even visits or goes to. So it's just so strange to me that like when you have you make this large of a world and you only use a very small pocket of it as a stage for your story.
Yeah.
And then you literally say with the rest of it, you go, see it if you see it, or don't see it if you don't. That seems to be like a waste of...
It's almost like you should be shining the brightest spotlight on this open world and be like, dude, just keep hanging out here. There's cool stuff to do.
Exactly. I feel like that's what you should... Look at this. Yeah. Everything in this game should have been placed here.
Yeah.
Everything in this game should have been placed in this beautiful environment. Yeah. You know? So the fact that you... that so little of it gets actually used as a canvas for the story is so odd to me. It's just such a strange decision.
So you recommend that folks really take their time and sort of breathe in the open world and
absolutely
futz around in it.
Yeah, because you can always return to it. It's never going to be like, yes, there are periods of time where you're going to be stuck in a dungeon or stuck in a set piece where you're like, no, you can't just quit out of this and go back to the open world. But generally speaking, like when you always have the opportunity to head back.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like it's going to go away. You don't have to worry. Don't be paranoid.
Good. I always get worried in games that I'm going to hit a point of no return where it doesn't clearly express that. And then they're going to be like, nope, well, that was the game, and you missed it.
No, the game is very good about that. Man, look at how long those draw distances are. Those are places you can go. That's not like...
That's not so.
A thing in the background. That's like actually where you can go. So yeah, like the game will warn you, hey, you're going to be away from the open world for a bit now. Yeah. So if there's something you want to do in the open world, go and do that. So I think that's smart. It's just so strange how it's so dichotomous. It's like, this huge open world was for a fraction of our story. Yeah. Well, not a fraction, half of our story. And the other half of the story is in totally different locales that aren't
relatively
related.
Linear. Yeah.
That are also relatively linear. And again, linearity isn't always bad, but when the linear sections are so much less fun than the non-linear ones, that's the big problem. Interestingly, my personal theory, I feel like the linear sections are a holdover from Versus 13.
Interesting.
I feel like the linear sections are probably what made up the bulk of the campaign of Versus 13, or were the story beats they wanted to hit in Versus 13.
And possibly when Tabata-san took over the game, that was when the open world stuff sort of got super implemented.
That's kind of what I think. And then they were like, you know what? Though we worked on all this story and we worked on this is so funny. Ignis tries to pass sometimes, but then he gets like kind of
he gets
cold feet. He gets gunshot. Like okay, he's gonna. Yeah, successful. Okay. Nice.
Proud of you, Ignis. Also, he passed on a solid yellow, so that was illegal.
Oh yeah, it's super illegal. Yeah. Like he doesn't care at all.
Whatever, he's got the Princeton's car.
That's right. He's also like, look at what he's driving.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I do love too. But we'll get to that in a second. Is the difference between what these guys have and what you see all around them. But closing on the open world and linear stuff, I really do think that the linear parts were holdovers from when the game was Versus 13. And I think that if Tabata had been in charge the whole time, I think this would have been Final Fantasy 15. And only this.
Gotcha.